Okay, guys. Now what we're gonna do, you can see this. We're gonna go ahead and mix up a little bit of what I call end cap. It's basically what you're gonna put in the ends of the expansion joints. If you can see this, I'm just putting in 1/3. I usually use 1/3 sand. You can see fill sand. One cup of that. Cup of Portland, and a cup of pea gravel. One cup of pea gravel, and those three, and then of course about 1 cup of water just to start. And what you do is you mix all this together. You want it to be kind of like just a mud. Not thick, just like a little bit thicker than pancake syrup. If you get too watery, just add a little bit more Portland and sand. A little bit soupy. Add a little bit more of Portland and sand. You're making mud. That's all we're doing. You just want it to where it doesn't run out of the end joints. Sometimes you can come in with like a paint mixing stick, or some of the old joint works good. This is about right here. This mud, good old mud. Mix it thoroughly. You don't want to make too much, although if I make too much, I use it for samples. I pour it into a small plastic container that I usually carry with me, and put some old rotten wood in there. And take that rotten wood out when we're ready to, and then put in some of the quicksand, and that way you can show it to people. And you're out. And here's how you put in these end joints. If you can see this, okay. All you're doing, this is a fairly simple process. Get a putty knife here. And then all you're doing here is just you create these end caps and encapsulate just trying to make it to where sometimes you'll have these busted off corners like that you can round off for the customers. But I just go ahead and sometimes I use a putty knife, sometimes I don't, and you just basically spoon in some of your concrete, just mixed up. Just making an end cap, and then I taper it down. I don't go too deep, but this one has a deep pocket, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that up while I'm here, because I'm going to fill it with something. Go ahead and, this one here, this particular corner has an issue, because it's got a busted corner right here. That's why you make it consistent in mud, so you can mold it. You don't even have to leave that cement in there if you don't want, or the putty knife. You go ahead and form it up pretty good, just like a plug, end plug. That's all you're doing. You're just keeping the sand, because what will happen is when you come in and sand the joint, the sand will come out the ends. So whatever works for you. Sometimes I don't end cap them and I just use the polymeric sand. Depends on the situation and the height of the ends that I'm going into. Let's go do some more. Tell you what, while we're here on this particular one, go ahead and see I've got a very deep joint here. You can backfill those really deep joints with some pea gravel. use that funnel, get it down in there so I don't have to sweep them back in, you know. But basically, you get the gist. What you're trying to do is create a 1 inch. However wide the joint is how deep the sand needs to be. Anything beyond that is overkill. You just need a 1-to-1 ratio, width to height, and you're good to go. So this one's about ready to be sanded. Let's go ahead and, while we're here and got the camera set up, sand this joint. I've got a little bit of dirt in there and a few leaves, but no big deal. But let me just go ahead and sand it while we're here. This would be a good example too for us because of the delta, the height. See how the angle? He's got another 1/2 inch up. It's a perfect way to show you how to do this. And what we want to do first is go ahead and use water to fill the joint. So we start sealing from the bottom up, or start binding the polymer from the bottom up. So go ahead and put a little water down there. Make sure you got plenty of pressure, because you want to keep it, not so much a lot of pressure. You just want to use a consistent amount every time you do this, so you know how much water you're adding. But go ahead and soak both walls pretty good. I usually never do more than a couple of feet at a time, just so I can control my work a little better. Go ahead and sand that joint pretty decently. Right down it with the poly sand. I've already got the deep pockets filled now. This particular one, I normally don't do this. I try to do it all in one. But because of the fact that I've got a steep, you know, higher ledge on this side, I'm going to go ahead and do this in 2 applications. And so you go ahead and let's wet this down a little bit. And you can count basically however many, you know, its distance, how much, whether you have to angle vertically or horizontally against the joint. You know, you can control the water. But what I do is watch closely, and you may recall last time you walked on a beach, and you see how the water sinks into the sand as the waves crash against the shore. At some point, the sand won't take anymore. And also, there's underneath this joint it's dry typically. So what will happen is, see, now that's the perfect saturation point right there I've got. So I was about 5 times across with a fine spray. So now what we can do is either let that dry or come back, you know, with another application here. I would recommend letting it dry, but because I've done this so many times, let's go ahead and let this. Yeah, let's go ahead and let this dry, because what we're going to have to do is have the exact amount from that upper lip, usually the lower lip right there on the upper side, down, and then taper it with a piece of PVC. So let's let that dry for a few minutes and we'll come back to it.